Hello, everyone, and welcome to the All About Data podcast, episode 5. My name is Jelly, and I have my colleague and friend here with me.
Hello, I'm Dr. Yuona.
And on episode 5 today, we are going to answer the question: should you pursue a master's, go to a boot camp, or do self learning in order to enter the data science field? Now, this question has been top of every student's mind that comes to myself and Dr. Yuona all the time. Should I actually do self learning? Should I pay a whole bunch of money for a boot camp, or should I even pay more money for a master's degree? So, we're going to talk about the different ways that you can enter the field, and we're going to weigh the pros and cons of each one of these paths. It is up to you to continue to do your research and find the option that best suits you. So before we go and talk about the pros and cons of a master's versus a boot camp versus a self-learning, I'm going to ask Dr. Yuona to give us a high-level overview about exactly what are the different paths that one can enter this data analytics or data science field.
Yes, and the good news is that all the paths lead to the same place, right? You can either come with an undergraduate degree in almost any area. Now, the computer sciences and economics are very heavily represented, but we have others with arts and languages. So that's an option. Then there are those who have a graduate degree, which Jelly Angela will talk more about. Then there are a wide variety of self-learning paths that you can pursue, data camp, and all of the other online options. And then you can also move into data science as a transition within your own company. But all of those are very viable paths to becoming a data scientist, data analyst.
Yeah, agreed.
So now, as we mentioned, those are the paths, but we have had different paths. One of those, I became a statistician. Jelly has a master's in analytics. And so, Jelly, can you tell us more about your path?
Yeah. And so we're going to now break down the pros and cons of a master's versus a boot camp versus a self learning, right? So, from a master's, and as Dr. Yona said, I do have a master's in analytics from the illustrious North Carolina State University through the Institute of Advanced Analytics, the home of the first analytics master's program. So, I love to say that analytics kind of started within that program. So, the pros is that you get a lot of in-depth knowledge, right? You take courses in all of the models, whether it's survival analytics, machine learning for time series, recommendation systems, cloud computing, SQL, etc. And for my particular program, one of the benefits was a practicum. So we had real world employer experience. So as we go through the program, we can put our skills to use to solve a real world problem. So we already come out with a project working with employers in healthcare, finance, sports, government, you name it. It also gives you that credential on the resume, right? A lot of people still value letters behind the name. So it's going to give you, in a lot of hiring algorithms, they pay you for your degrees, right? So your salary that you come into a company with is somewhat dependent on location, but it's also dependent on if you have a higher professional degree also in the field. And it helps create a family. In my master's program, it was about 120 of us. We all became a family, and in turn, it gave us lifelong networking. So even once we wanted to transition from our first job, we still had other people that we can say, hey, I graduated with you. Do you have an opening? And we still get job openings till this day, right? So it fosters that great sense of community. And you're also able to learn from the best industry
Yes.
professionals and our professors that's already had industry experience, already have written some white papers, already have been in the field, can actually mentor you and guide you. And we had one of the top career services placement. Before we graduated, it was about 97% placement before you graduate, right? So
Mhm.
those were the benefits of, in particular, my master's program. Not every master's program is the same. right? We have virtual master's programs as well, where you can do it online. And there's other institutions that may do career services different. They may not offer a practicum like my master's program had, but there are different things. It's still getting a master's in the field. Now, some of the cons on the flip side is money. It's expensive, right? Master's programs are going to be the most expensive option out of our three of boot camp, self-learning, and masters. So it does take a financial commitment. So I highly recommend that Dr. Yuan and I talked in a previous episode about median salaries. Look at your location, do your market research of median salaries, not the mean, the median.
Right.
Dr. Yuana will talk a lot about that in statistics,
That's
right? The
fine.
median, and
Yes.
see how much you're paying for the masters and how long it will be to get a return on your investment, right? And it's going to go really fast. My master's program was 10 months, 50 hours a week. You can't work at the same time that you do it. So some people can't afford to take the 10 months off and actually pursue that master's. So it may not be a viable option for those who have families or need to work full time or need something that's more flexible because it doesn't allow you that flexibility. So I'm going to shoot it back over to Dr. Yuona. That's our master's. Can you talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the boot camp?
So there are pros and cons, and shout out to the illustrious North Carolina.
North Carolina State, Wolfpack.
That's right. Yeah, that 97% hiring rate, placement rate at graduation is really extraordinary. But that is one option that you can take, but you have to consider the cost and the time and all these others. There is the option of the boot camp, and this is different in that it it tends to be cheaper than a graduate program. It certainly is a shorter process, right? Much more intensive. There is more hands-on type of activity, and you come in. It's like go 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 from the beginning because you have to learn all of the basics of statistics and analytics, and then you have to learn programming, then you have to learn machine learning, and there might be some deep learning, and the whole package is presented to you in a very short space of time. So you have to, with the graduate school, there's a preparation that's involved, but also with the boot camp, there's a preparation involved. So you have to come in knowing that you're going to be required to work hard and deliver, otherwise you're going to get left behind. So those are some of the things you have to have the mindset about when you're thinking about choosing the graduate school versus the boot camp. So
Yeah. Exactly. And so with that, boot camps are typically shorter. So for those
yes.
who can only afford to take off from work for 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, that may be a better option versus a 10 month to 2 year master's program. So it does allow you more flexibility because boot camps also offer part-time options as well. So that's also a benefit for that work-life balance that people need before they transition. As Dr. Yona said, though, the rigor and the pace, it's the same. You got to come hitting the ground running on day one of a boot camp because it is a boot camp for a reason, right? That does not mean that you need to come to boot camps knowing everything, right? Dr. Yuan and I, she can testify. We've had chefs, we've had gymnasts, we've had HR professionals, we have everyone come on day one of the boot camp, have no fundamentals, and still excel and get a job. Boot camps, on the flip side, may offer limited depth, right? They're here to teach you a little bit of everything. So for
Yes.
those who know, hey, I really want to learn large language models and go into a real in-depth niche of LLM or NLP, you may want to consider a boot camp that is niche to that. If
Yes.
somebody really wants to go into financial analytics, you may want to consider a boot camp that is niche to that, right? So boot camps are more general than even a master's program. Master's programs have a little bit more time to create depth of concepts. Boot camps is going to throw very high level concepts at you very quickly. So it can be very fast paced as well. And
Mhm.
some boot camps don't offer placement, right? We have worked with boot camps that have great career services, and shout out to every career service coach, right? And there are some boot camps that may have limited career services support. So, as Dr. Yuona said, with my master's degree, we were fortunate to have a great career coach, a great career advisor called April Wilson. Shout out to her, who was able to get those high metrics before graduation every year, back to back, even during COVID, right? And some boot camps, they may not. It may take 6 months, a year, or 2 years after the boot camp to actually get employment. So if you're really interested in career support, look for boot camps who offer that. Is there anything that you want to say about boot camps, Dr. Yuona?
Right, because you mentioned the different offerings that boot camps may have. And so it begs the question about the quality of the boot camp in general, right? And so you want to do your due diligence and make sure you read the reviews or you get feedback or you talk to some of the former students, the graduates, and really get a feel for what that life in the boot camp is going to be like. Because the marketing could be one thing, but you talk to the students, that's going to be the best insight that you're going to get as far as the quality of the education that the boot camp will offer.
Yes, yes. So those are pros and cons of boot camp. Now, moving on to our self-learning, this is going to be your most cost-effective option, right? And your more flexible option. So people ask all the time, can I really get a role, entry-level role in data analytics, in data science by being a self-learner? Yes, you can,
Yes, you
right?
can.
Do you have the grits and the motivation to make a schedule? Say from this month to this month, I'm going to work on these concepts. I'm going to get the data science certification on Data Camp. I'm going to get the data analyst certification on Data Camp. I'm going to go to free conferences and network. I am going to get a mentor to help me through this process. And I'm going to create a banging portfolio so that people know that I am determined as a self learner to get into the field. So keep in mind all of what I just said. You're going to need, everybody needs a portfolio. I don't care if you're master's, boot camp, self learner, transitioning in your own company, whatever the case may be. You need a
Yes,
great portfolio.
absolutely.
But it's even that much more important for self learners.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you don't have the boot camp certificate, you don't have the master's degree. So you really need to demonstrate to employers that you have projects that you've actually worked on. So get together with a community on LinkedIn who is working on projects, right? Start up a Discord server and help each other out on certain projects. There are projects, like I said, through a lot of these e-learning platforms, whether it's Udemy, Kaggle, Data Camp, LinkedIn Learning, etc. I'm a big proponent of Data Camp because they have a great project workspace that you can do projects on. So do that, right? So some of the cons is that it's going to lack structure. It's up to you, right, to be your own motivator to get through all of the things that you need to get through when you're doing a self learner. It's up to you to research what is important to learn in the first place. It doesn't have that career placement. So, boot camps and master's programs and other programs may have some more career services support. So, if you know that you're really interested in that career services support, you have a guaranteed community around you to help you learn, then maybe self learning may not be for you, or maybe it would. Would you like
Yeah.
to say anything about self learning, Dr. Yuna?
Yeah, it's important to realize that the with self-learning, you have to establish the structure. So if you know that you have the discipline, that you have the drive and the motivation, then certainly. But you have to be honest with yourself, right? Because if you know that you don't, then you may need to enroll in a boot camp or some other more structured environment. And the other thing is that with the self-learning, there isn't that feedback that is very important to learning as well as to developing your portfolio and working on your projects, something that you can do that would probably take you a month or so. If you have interaction feedback from someone who may be more experienced, they can help you move that much faster along, and also they can give you a different perspective and insight onto some things that you may not know as a new person coming into the field. So again, there are pros and cons, and so you want to take advantage of that. But one of the things that you can do is you can start as a self-learner and then join a boot camp after you feel you have some experience as far as dealing with the algorithms, or like you've learned statistics, and now you feel you're ready for the boot camp. So all of the paths have a place. So you just want to be aware of all of the issues that could arise.
Yeah. And that's the key. So Dr. Yuna saying having a village. If you know you're going to be a self-learner, get yourself a mentor that can give you that feedback,
Yes.
right? That can say or shadow somebody that's already in the field, right? And that's going to come with networking and building
Right.
your network, especially through LinkedIn. How strong is your virtual handshake? Start making that virtual handshake really, really strong now, and attend some of these free conferences. Get a network and let people give you feedback. If you did a project, post it on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm looking for feedback for those that
Yes.
are in the
Yes.
field. And if you do that, self-learning can also get you into a role. So with that being said, so we talked about some of the pros and cons that we have experienced through having masters or higher professional degrees, boot camp, as well as self-learning. So now let's talk about some of these skills and backgrounds, because a lot of people think it's all about the technical skills. That's not necessarily the case. So Dr. Yuana, can you discuss your expertise and your experience in mentoring individuals and what backgrounds they have and what skills they actually need to get a data role?
Yeah. One of there was a hiring manager who did a YouTube link interview, and he was at one of the tech firms, and he was saying that when he interviews for data scientists, data analyst roles, he's not so concerned about whether they have the technical background, but whether they can think critically. He said that that is the most important skill that he is looking for, because he feels that the technical skills can be learned, they can be acquired, they can be developed, they can be honed. But some of the critical thinking skills, they might be harder to come by. And so I think that should be the focus. And now, given that there are so many technical skills, like when you think about all of the programs and the platforms, and I mean, nowadays, every time you turn around, there's like a new app or a new software or a new algorithm or something. But if you have that basic critical thinking skill, I think that foundation will set you off in a good place. Because as data scientists, you have to remember that we are ultimately problem solvers. That's what our main mission is. Yes, we're using data to provide solutions to those problems, but we are solving problems. And so being able to understand the problem, the issue, the framework, and then develop a solution based on data, that is the fundamental. Now, then deciding on whether you're going to use Python, or you're going to use R, or you're going to use Power BI, or the tools, that's almost secondary. So having that understanding of developing your problem-solving skills, I think that's fundamental. And then you can decide on which one of the technical skills you'd like to harness and develop. And then, of course, you may also want to have some a special domain that is something that you have a passion for or interest in, or maybe you have a background in. For me, like dealing with disease prediction, so I tended to focus in that direction. But you realize that the algorithms that you apply in disease prediction, you can also use in churn analysis or recommendation systems. So those things come with it. But also, besides the critical thinking and the technical skills, the domain expertise, those come with time. But being good at communication, someone said to me at my last role that the job is not about the job. It is about commuting. The work is not about the work, but it's about communicating the work. Because if you do great work, but you can't communicate the work to those to whom it matters, then it's almost as if you haven't done any work, right? And so being good at communicating your findings, your research, your analysis, those are some of the things that are important. And then, of course, in general, being having an understanding of project management, because all data science work it's a project. because there's a start with, the raw data all the way to the deployment or the production. And so knowing how to organize your time and your resources to go from one end to another in a project, and then how to incorporate and leverage the skills of your colleagues and your coworkers, that is also important in getting the job done and doing it well. And then you also want to include some understanding of the ethics involved in working with data that is coming from people. That's important. And then making sure that there is continuous learning. And like I mentioned, because every day there's always some new technology coming on board, then you want to make sure that you're staying ahead in the field and you're keeping abreast. You don't have to learn everything, but just be aware of what's out there and what are some of the opportunities that may present itself, because you may be doing something in a particular way, but now there's a new technology that allows you to do it much faster and much more easily, even much more cost effectively. And so you want to be aware of some of those things. So that's in a nutshell the skills I think that would make you a good data analyst, data scientist, and ready for a job placement.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't take anything away from that nice extensive list. And Dr. Yuona is great about pointing students in the right direction and mentoring them, myself as well. So always feel free to reach out to us via LinkedIn, because that's what we're here for, to advocate for people to actually enter the field. And I will stress that project management, right? Data science projects only happen if it creates business value. So being able to see business value and know what value your analysis brings to a company is very important. And I think that's something that self-learners, boot camps, and master's programs can incorporate more into their learnings, right? It's project management. So make sure that you go and you focus on these soft skills such as critical thinking, data storytelling, understanding data ethics, data literacy. We have a whole podcast on data literacy. Dr. Yuona spoke about ethics, understanding data bias versus data racism, and how to make sure that you have ethical algorithms in their analysis. All of these things are going to be very important. So I definitely agree.
Yeah, and that then leads us to the question of, because so now you've decided you want to go this way, you want to take your own self-learning path. Like, there again, so many options. And Jelly, she's the queen of courses. So, Jelly, please tell us, in your opinion, what are some of the better courses out there when it comes to data science and data analytics?
I'm a nerd, y'all. I love to learn, right? So even if it's not specifically data science and data analytics or data engineering, I'm always trying to pick up a new course, even if it's about planning Disney weddings. So take it as, I want to be a self-learner. Where do I start now? You're going to start, as Dr. Yona mentioned, project management. Set yourself out a schedule. You can do it through Airtable. You can do it through Notion. You can do it through GitHub. You can do it through Monday. You can do it through Trello. I don't care where it is, but set up a project and manage it, because you're also going to be able to talk about you managing your self-learning progress in an interview, right? By using some of these project management tools. So research, what is important for me to learn? I know that I need to learn SQL. You can ask a lot of people, as Dr. Yona said, the tools vary, but a lot of people are going to agree SQL, some type of data visualization tool such as Power BI, Tableau, whatever it may be, and then some type of technical programming, whether it's Python, R, SAS, whatever. A lot of that depends on your field. It depends on some things. But say, for instance, you want to learn SQL, you want to learn Excel and Python, right? So then you're going to plan in your Airtable or your project management tool, how many hours a day am I going to spend on it? What are the links to the resources that I'm going to use? Am I going to go through the DataCamp route, which I highly recommend? And no, DataCamp does not sponsor me to say this. Okay. I was in love with DataCamp before my master's program.
We both love DataCamp.
I said that was going to be my first role, is to go to DataCamp. They also just recently had an amazing conference.
Yes.
As well, that was sponsored by DataCamp. So DataCamp does it well. So DataCamp has a whole Slack workspace, and that you can even talk to other people learning on DataCamp at the same time. So even with DataCamp, you got to manage the time. So I'm going to do the data science path in data camp. I'm going to do 2 hours every day. I'm going to do this networking event on this day, whether I listen to it live or on demand. And then I'm going to work on my resume here. I'm going to work on a project here. So self-learners, you need a schedule. You need to stick to that schedule. And it may be good to have an accountability partner. Find somebody else who wants to get into the field, or just have somebody that can hold you accountable to that schedule. Data Camp is great. Coursera is also great. Coursera, I think, has a great name for itself. It has a lot of courses made by professors at really Ivy League, top level universities, right? I'm also taking one now for machine learning ops because I want to get a little bit of that cloud computing back into my mind. Okay. So there's a great Coursera courses that also offer projects. LinkedIn Learning, I wrote a whole blog about me doing 35 courses in under 2 months.
Say that again.
And one of those courses was project management as well, right? So think about the soft skills that you need to focus on as a self-learner, as well as those technical stuff. And of course, we have Simply Learn, Free Code Camp, Udacity, Udemy, Code Academy, edX, all of these other self-learning platforms that you can utilize. But we would say get a schedule, get a mentor, get a community. Yeah. And if you get those things, self-learning, you'll be good to go. There's no need to pay tens of thousands and thousands of dollars. If you know that you want career support, you want a guaranteed community, you want immediate feedback, you want a structure, then a boot camp or a master's program may be best for you. Right. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Yuona to give us any pointers you may have for those that are entering the space. So now I want to be a self-learner, or I already have a degree. How can I actually showcase my skills on a project portfolio or on a resume?
Yeah, so we've talked about the importance of the portfolio. We've kind of mentioned it, and just to give a heads up, Jelly and I, we are working on a course that we're building together that we hope to launch soon, that will help students develop their own data science, data analytics portfolio, because that's so important now with the industry being as competitive as it is. I think that if you don't have a portfolio, you almost don't stand a chance, right? Because employers have so many options. So they need to, besides your resume, which shows what, maybe what certifications you've had, the portfolio is what shows what you've actually done and what you can do. And so having that portfolio that can demonstrate that you have taken a business problem and you have itemized it and structured it in such a way that you've used a data analysis approach to find a solution to that problem can be a major plus for you. And so you have a portfolio, it allows you to demonstrate various aspects of your skill set. So you can show how you are versed in data preparation and data cleaning and data exploration. Then you can have your dashboards that can show your visualization skills. And then you'll have another project that emphasizes your modeling skills. And then, of course, you will have a presentation that puts everything together so they can see your communication skills in terms of communicating your findings both to a technical audience as well as to a non-technical audience. So you have your presentations, and then you have a link to your code or your GitHub. And Jelly has a lovely course on YouTube to give you some of that understanding, because all of that is what's going to set you apart from others and increase your chances of being hired. So you want to take those things in mind when you're thinking about your portfolio. And you want to not just have the projects that you did in the bootcamp or on Coursera or data camp that everybody is doing. You want to try to also, you want those, but you want to have in addition some other projects, one or two that is data that might be not as popular, some of the common ones that almost everybody has, because I've heard hiring managers and others, when they see like the Titanic data set, they just kind of turn away from that because it's too common. They want to see something more unique and something that showcases your preference, your interest, your passion for data science. right? And so you want to think about including some of those in your portfolio, but you also want to set it up in such a way that they can see how you approach a problem, right? You think things through, critical thinking again. So you looked at the problem, you understood it from every aspect, you were careful to ask all the right questions, and then you developed a structure, a methodology. With my background in data science and higher education, that was one of the things that one of the skills that I came into the data science field with, having that understanding of the scientific methodology. And so that's something you can also develop and be careful to showcase in your portfolio. And then, of course, you also want to show how all of your projects led to some kind of solution. Now, whether the solution was implemented, you want to emphasize that. But even if it's a suggested solution, you want to also emphasize that, because that's what employers want. They want to know that if they bring you on, that you're going to be able to help them solve problems. And so a portfolio is the best way to demonstrate all of that.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
I would agree. I stress portfolios all the time. The resume is great, but like I tell my students, make that resume a project. Make that resume turn into a dashboard. If you haven't been on Tableau Public and see how people have been making their resumes out of dashboards, I think it's smart. I think it also showcases your dashboarding and storytelling skills, which are great skills in this field. Figure out what you are doing and see if you can turn it into a project. Record yourself walking through
Yes.
your findings. So on some of these GitHub repos, push a 5-minute video of you actually walking through the project and make yourself a business problem and stakeholder so you can tell people that I have a good business understanding, right? We love to see those types of videos as well so we can see that you can communicate findings and your research. If you've looked at somebody else's analysis and you wanted to build upon it, like reach out to that person and add their research, of course, giving them credit to a project that you want to expand upon. Everybody wants to see your passion. They want to see that you can communicate. They want to see the diversity of that portfolio. So definitely, I don't care if you're a self-learner, master's, boot camp, really hit the ground running. That is your virtual handshake as a data analyst and data scientist. Okay.
And then the other thing, just to mention something that Jelly always stresses about that virtual handshake, about having a presence on LinkedIn and commenting on other people's posts that are related. Even if you don't post yourself, there are still ways that you can have a presence, right? And then also you can have a podium. What's the thing when you do the blog posts?
Oh yeah, Medium. Yeah.
Medium. Medium, site where you can share some of your learnings briefly, and just, on even your own regular page, whether it's LinkedIn or any other social media platform. They want to see that you are really interested and passionate about this whole area of data science and data analytics. So
Yeah. I follow a couple of people on Instagram and or if you have a TikTok that's always trying to teach you Excel hacks or Python
that's
hacks.
right. I
And
know
I'm
it's
like, I
true.
did not know that Python package was out there.
Yeah.
Right. So, however, you can create it for you and still stay involved and notice so people know that
Yes.
this is a passion for you, go to a free conference immediately afterwards, post. Say, I love this session from this speaker, followed them, and these are some things that I've learned, right? And then people are like, wow, you're going to conferences, you care about your professional development, you incorporated data science or data analytics in a fun way. We can see your personality. You've made a video, you've made a great dashboard of your resume. All of these things set you apart, right? Do it now before the word gets out, before we
Right.
get to 1 million subscribers and everybody out there starts doing it, right?
Yeah,
So
like that one cat we went to where the lady said only 3% of the LinkedIn members actually post. And I found that so incredulous. And I did the research. It was actually only 1% of LinkedIn members who share posts on LinkedIn. So the field is wide open.
yeah, so post, get that great portfolio going. any way that you join data science, as long as you incorporate data science in an ethical way, something that can solve business problems, something that can have a positive impact on society, this is definitely, it doesn't matter which route you take, it all will be to that same destination. So definitely do some self-reflection, figure out if a master's, boot camp, or self-learning is right for you, and stay tuned for our 6th podcast. Thank you all for joining us today. Bye-bye.